Welcome to Atypical Talk. This is a podcast where we have conversations that illuminate the intersection of faith, culture, and the common spaces of our humanity. I'm Abby.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Allison.
Okay, Allison, let's jump into this. Since this is the very first episode, we want to hear a little bit more about you and Joel and me and just figure out what's going on behind these voices.
Why are you the way that you are?
I know. How long is this podcast? No. I'm Allison. I have been married to my husband for 20 years, which seems crazy. I don't really know how that happened, but time flies. We have two girls, one that's a sophomore in college and one that's a sophomore in high school. So we are nearing empty nest sooner rather than later. But we have two super cute doggos that I love very much. So here at the church, I am the Next Steps Director. It's my official title. I tell people all the time that if it doesn't include singing or playing an instrument, I've pretty much done it at some point. But so it encompasses a lot. But that's pretty much, I can't think. Oh, I'm a diehard Cubs fan. We travel to baseball parks all the time. That's what we actually do for fun. I know it to some people seems the opposite of fun, but you know.
What the people really want to know is who's got the best nachos ballpark food if you've been to so many of them.
Yeah, we have. So every place we go, we get the helmet nachos, which also, because then you have a souvenir.
Yeah.
It's a twofer.
It's a twofer that my husband hangs then in his little man cave area. But I'm always going to be partial to Wrigley Field just because, it's sentimental. That's where my heart is. And some places, their helmet nachos, it's literally just chips and cheese. That is
that's not nachos.
No, it really is. I looked at the person one time in Pittsburgh and I was like, what is this? But, it's okay. Pittsburgh, you had lots of other great things to offer.
Yeah, Allison was actually the first full-time hire that we hired at Bridgeway, and she sort of stepped off of a ledge even before we were actually doing physical services because of COVID. And Allison is really brave. She is super smart. And she's also an Enneagram 8, which I am as well. So
for better or worse.
For better or for worse. And I get where she's coming from, even if it drives me crazy, because it's what drives me crazy about myself. But so glad she's on our team here at the church.
We challenge each other, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm Joel. I've been married now to my high school sweetheart. Yeah, we're one of those weird couples. We've been married for 12 years. She sent me a Facebook memory earlier today. It was us from 16 years ago, which was just frightening and shocking. But yeah, father of two boys. We have Thomas, who's 1, and Jack, who is 3. And so we are exhausted and having so much fun and ready for diapers to be done with, all those things. But yeah, I'm a geek. I love all the epic sci-fi fantasy stories you could think of. I'm a long-suffering Pacers fan, forever and ever, and just live to be disappointed about this time of the year when playoffs start. And I'm a pastor at a local church in Kokomo called Bridgeway. Yeah, it's a little about me. Abby, what about you?
So I have been married for almost 3 years. It'll
Newlyweds.
be 3 years next month.
Oh.
Yep, to my husband Lucas. We have 2 dogs and a cat. We have Stella, our Australian Shepherd mix, Sammy, our Wheaten Terrier mix, and Simba, a cat. There's
Simba the
not
cat.
breeds. But yeah, so we've been married for almost 3 years. We like to go hiking, camping, fishing, all of that stuff. And we also like playing video games a lot.
Gamers. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, Abby's actually the last installment to our team here at Bridgeway. And man, I met her and her husband, probably about 8 months ago. And just for my first time hanging out with Abby, I came home and I told my wife, I just met with this couple, and man, she is like, Lucas is smart too. But I was like, Abby, she is bright and she's compassionate and open-minded. And just from there, I thought, I got to find a way to get her on our team. And I schemed and dreamed, and it happened.
Yep,
she's
and here we are.
Yeah, and we're recording a podcast.
Exactly.
But yes, it's great. We also love hiking. So where's your favorite place to hike?
I like Hocking Hills, Ohio. Yeah.
I like air conditioning. That's what I like. But anyway.
That's true. Hiking with 2 itty bitty kids would not be ideal, but we're past that.
Yeah, so let's jump into our first article today. This one is titled Selena Gomez Says Quitting the Internet Has Transformed Her Mental Health. This is a Relevant Magazine article by Emily Brown. Here's a quick summary of that. Selena Gomez has stayed off social media for 4.5 years. She only uses it for posting content and does not scroll through other people's posts. I haven't been on the internet in 4.5 years, Gomez told Good Morning America. It's changed my life completely. I'm happier, I'm more present, I connect more with people. It makes me feel normal. Other celebrities who have done the same recently include Meghan Markle, Emma Stone, and Pete Davidson. All the people mentioned have reported being happier and having improved mental health. So what are some ways that social media, just being on the internet in general, has affected your guys' mental health?
I think for me, one of the big things that I notice, like when I am scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, is kind of the comparison trap that I feel, watching or seeing moms who make these like elaborate sack lunches when I'm throwing a Lunchable or something in my kid's lunch, or like it's even caused me to not necessarily want to have people over at my home, which might sound weird, but just because you see other people's homes and you're like, our house is not that great, so let's just not. So I think that's the big thing for me. But also, I find it bringing me joy in a way where, like, I see people that maybe I haven't seen since high school or something, and they're making big moves in their life, or they've improved in such a way. And so then I'm able to appreciate that with them in a way that, like, I wouldn't if social media didn't exist, because I just probably wouldn't have had contact with those people. So it's kind of this,
it's a mixed
double-edged,
bag,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's a dichotomy because like we think about all the internet has brought us. I mean, it's incredible the connection that we can have with people across the globe, all the joy we can experience, the people we can cheer on. I think about people in my line of work, church planners or leaders, and all the awesome stuff God's doing in their community, and we can cheer that on and stay connected to how their family is growing and moving. And just the reality of being able to video call, right, with people across the globe. I remember early days of the pandemic when we weren't even seeing our family or
learning how to Zoom.
Hey, like, Mom, here, move your thumb, but here you can do that kind
Turn
of
your
thing.
mic on.
Yeah. I mean, it's just such a beautiful thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's something that, I always think of the internet and social media is not a holy thing. It's not an evil thing. It's a neutral thing. It's what we bring to it that can bring destruction and damage. But it's not neutral. It's changing us, right? Because our patterns and our behaviors and our habits, we become a combination of our patterns, behaviors, and habits. And so I think it really leads us to have to think, are we walking wisely with the internet and with social media? For me, like you asked the question about our mental health, I notice my use of social media when I'm going sort of down in my mental health. I use it more. It's almost like I use it, I think about this because we have little kids at home, like a pacifier, or like what people used to do to have just go have a cigarette to like calm down, take the edge off, to numb ourselves down. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I found myself sometimes doing what they call doom scrolling, where you're just scrolling and you're like, I don't know what I read, but I just...
Or how long it's been.
It's in a time portal kind of thing. But it's like that new, stepping outside, having a cigarette. And you mentioned the comparison trap thing. I know there have been many times I've woken up and, I'll reach over to my phone and check what I missed in air quotes and looking at, somebody's already ran like 6 miles, they made this great breakfast for their kids, and look at like they're building this incredible thing in their backyard, and I'm like still in my pajamas and thinking I'm never gonna compare
on my third cup of coffee. And
but yes, and it's really important for me, and again this is like something I'm learning, but to realize that we're only putting up our highlight reels on social media, so we're comparing other people's highlight reels to what we know about ourselves 24/7, and of course they'll never measure up.
Right.
And we're just falling into this trap that just makes me slow down and ask the question: how can we walk wisely? How can I walk wisely with this very powerful tool of the internet? And so I've seen the ways it's taken me down. And as a father with little boys, like I never thought that I'd be escaping to just go like stand in the bathroom and scroll on my phone for a couple minutes, but I need those little breaks every now and again. I don't know what that says about me. Maybe I'm alone. I don't think I am.
No. Oh, definitely not. The number of times I, found myself in our walk-in closet, like eating some chocolate or something. I'm like, I just need a break. But a lot of that was, pre-social media because I'm old.
What about you, Abby?
Yeah, I've had the same issue with comparing myself to others. A lot of social media will have like an algorithm in place. So I'm seeing, people my age who are traveling the world and they have, much nicer, expensive things than I do, or people who are like way better at makeup and like better at styling themselves. And I'm like, why can't I be like that? And so there have been times that I've just completely quit some form of social media. Like I've been off Instagram for quite a while now because of those reasons. I noticed I was just getting depressed every time I got on there because I was comparing myself to everyone else.
Yep. It's just a updated version of the Keeping Up with the Joneses kind of.
I don't even know what that means, Alice.
Oh.
How old are you?
85. I'm 85. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I know exactly what you mean, for sure. Yeah, I think, the question really is like, how do we steward this powerful tool that we have in front of us? How do we move forward with it?
Yeah. So what are some practices you guys have in place to keep yourself from letting social media take over your life and becoming something that you're sitting there doom scrolling for several hours at a time?
Yeah, I'll go. This is the...
I'm like, dun, dun, dun.
The reverse confessional moment for a pastor, right? But, this is art, not science for me, and I've had seasons where I feel like I've walked these practices out, and it's been helpful. They're true, whether I'm consistent and believing them and walking in them. But, a couple things I think of is, because comparison is such a dangerous vice that is exposed through social media, is really focusing on gratitude, finding ways to just be grateful for what you have, where you are in your life, and actually like writing it out, maybe posting it in not a humble brag kind of way, but posting what you're grateful for, sharing what you're grateful for, saying these words out loud. It's a way to combat that comparison, to look back and just be like, okay, I'm not where maybe I want to be, but man, all these things I take for granted, they're here, and I'm in a great place. Paul, writing to early Jesus followers in the first century, he was writing this actually from a prison cell, which gives, I think, some depth to what he's going to say. But at the end of his letter to this group of Jesus followers in Philippi, he said in verse 8, chapter 4, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. It's like this idea of focusing on the good that's around us, looking at the world through a good eye and not a negative, bad eye. It changes things. And so when we're on our phones and on social media a lot, we tend to just go to that negative view and not thinking about those things that are good and ultimately true. So focusing on gratitude is a big one for me. Another one just with dealing with people, because I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience, but sometimes people think differently than I do, and they're on the interwebs.
What? Pause for dramatic shock.
Right? But I think making an extra effort towards kindness it's been a powerful thing for me. Trying to catch people doing things right in a culture and in a societal moment where we're just trying to do the gotcha to people all the time and try to own people by saying they're wrong. Catching people doing things right and celebrating them, honoring them, can be a powerful thing to sort of combat us just being all about ourselves all the time and then comparing ourselves to others. Another thing that I've done well at certain points in my life, I'm not in a good season right now, is putting my device to bed before I go to bed. Like, I had a season where I was really faithfully, like I would put my kids to bed. I would put my phone in a different room and I would not see it till the morning. Well, getting up in the middle of the night with our 1-year-old, I was on my phone in the middle of the night to try to stay awake and haven't gone back to that. But just this idea of me not sleeping with it to where I can reach it or it can buzz or I can see the light go off to where I can grab it. Just a way that I try to not be mastered by my devices, but make sure that I'm the master of my devices. And then taking intentional breaks, like having a decision to be like, okay, so this week I'm off of this, or I'm going to delete this app so it's harder for me to get to it, so I'm not compulsively, that's not a word, compulsively going and grabbing the device to make sure that I'm in charge of it instead of the other way around. But those are some things that have helped me walk more wisely. Not saying that I'm perfect at it at all, as my wife would be so quick to attest to. But those are some things that I think are good things to put in front of us when we're trying to walk wisely with it.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree with most of what Joel said, but I am also,
now I want to hear what you did. No, just kidding. Yeah.
no, I'm just not great at it either. So it's not that I don't agree. It's just I do not have that necessary practice. But yeah, same. Just putting my phone on like do not disturb or whatever it is now on the update, but putting it to sleep basically. So that way it doesn't buzz, it doesn't make noise, and even turning it over so that way you can't see if there's a notification kind of a thing, have been super helpful for me a lot of times because, if it buzzes, you feel like, oh, I have to look at it. Well, no, I don't.
Yeah.
It can wait, but you just feel that. It's the same reason why I stopped wearing kind of the watch on my wrist, because I felt like, oh, every time it buzzed, I needed to look. And I just realized like my anxiety was going up and up and up and up because it just was buzzing. And I'm like, what the heck? So, that's just been another thing for me. Like I know tons of people that wear them, but for me, and I know you can turn the notifications off, but it just was not helpful. So I was like, this thing has to go. So just smaller steps, plus just even trying to be more intentional about slowing down, which I'm terrible at, side note. But so just being more still, and that involves just not even like scrolling, sometimes just literally sitting and taking some deep breaths, because we are so go, go, go a lot of the times. And so just finding some small moments where you can just stop.
Yeah.
It's going to be very hard, people. It's going to be very hard. But yeah, that's been one way that I've tried to just control my device and just my time in general.
Yeah, I really like the do not disturb feature where you can set it up that it turns off at a certain time every night. And it's really nice to have that, especially like when I get up and let my dogs out in the middle of the night, the notifications aren't even showing up on my screen when you have it like that. So I'm not tempted to, stop when I'm up at 2 a.m. to see what messages I had when it went into that do not disturb mode. So I really like that feature, but I'm terrible at recognizing when I'm at a point where, social media is taking over and I need to back away.
Yeah, I guess it's just a button to this conversation for me is the internet. It's here to stay.
Yeah.
And it's a powerful thing. And so this is probably going to be something we talk about a lot, is how do we live in a world, this physical world, with this digital reality?
Yeah.
And how do we walk wisely with it? Because it's here to stay and it's powerful.
And I think with us working at a church, it's important to stay connected. And that's the easiest way to stay connected nowadays is through Facebook, through Instagram, being able to see what people who've come to the church are up to in their everyday life and stuff. And so without it, we'd be pretty lost. But so there's obviously good things. We can't just delete our accounts and walk away. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm tempted, though.
It is tempting.
If you tell me I have to do a TikTok dance, maybe that's what's going to happen.
Listen,
We'll see.
there are worse things on the internet. Maybe.
Okay, so let's jump into our second article. This one is about a Minneapolis TV station that found footage from a teacher's strike back in 1970. The footage included 11-year-old Prince supporting teachers at that strike. This is an insider article by Azmi Haroun. So the summary about this, in Minneapolis, the TV station WCCO was covering a teacher's strike last month. They wanted to add historical context by inserting footage from another teacher's strike that happened 52 years prior. The production manager found 13 minutes of footage from that strike that happened in 1970, and in the footage they interviewed an 11-year-old boy who is recognized as the musical icon Prince. Everyone was certainly surprised to find this footage that may have gone unnoticed otherwise. Here is that clip.
So then I immediately just went out to the newsroom and started showing people and saying, I'm not going to tell you who I think this is, but who do you think this is? And every single person, Prince.
We didn't have the right equipment to hear the film, so a specialist helped us extract the audio, and then we heard his voice.
Are most of the kids in favor of the picketing?
Yep.
How come?
I think they should get a better education too, and I think they should get some more money, cause they work be working extra hours for us and all that stuff.
So they go on in the news report to talk about how they had to track down some of the other people who had been interviewed at that strike just to 100% confirm that this was Prince before they released it, because he didn't say his name or anything like that in that clip. Prince didn't change in his willingness to stand up for others as he got older and rose to fame. So what about this clip, this story really stood out to you guys?
It just made me want to go back and listen to more Prince music. You know, it's kind of funny. This is not what we're really talking about, but I love music. And I never really got into Prince, and he was a little bit before my cultural consciousness. I knew what was going on. But I remember a couple years ago, I saw him playing at a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony for George Harrison from the Beatles, and Tom Petty was singing, and Prince was playing electric guitar on the sickest version of While My Guitar Gently Weeps that I've ever heard. And we got to link this in the show notes, because if you're looking for a guitar solo to melt your face off, which who doesn't look for that on, like, what is this? Whenever you're listening to this, if you're working out or driving, you need this. You got to hear it, because he was an incredible musician. So to hear more of like his makeup as a person was kind of cool.
Yeah, one of the things that I loved about the clip, the full version, is there's a reporter that talks about how like the people who knew him, who like really knew him, called him Skipper. And so it just took me back to like thinking like everybody wants to really be known, you know, by somebody or by a group of people. And so like those people genuinely knew him. And so I loved every time that somebody would watch the video and they were like, it's Skipper. And I was like, oh, I love that, because that's just, I don't know.
He made the right choice too. He made the right choice of being the rock and roll stage name Prince instead of Skipper.
Honestly,
I don't think it would have carried the same gravitas.
No, I don't think so either.
As that, I mean, for me, on more of like a downer note, watching this is thinking, what was this, 52 years ago? And here we are, 2022. So many different advances in our culture and society and technology. And I feel like teachers are still in this place where they're not supported, not respected, not paid anywhere close to what they're worth for molding the minds of the next generation. And I was like, come on, guys. And I'm part of the guys in that, right? And we're all, as a culture. But I'm like, can't we get it together and realize, especially over the last couple of years with the pandemic and what teachers have gone through, man, I just have a heart for teachers, really respect and love, and cannot imagine my life or our world without teachers. Shout out to all the teachers, all three of you probably listening to this, maybe. We'll see. But yeah, that was just like this little bit, come on, 52 years ago, the same issues.
I mean, it came up because they were having another strike and stuff that they were having 52 years ago. So it's like, how are we just doing the same thing over again?
Yeah.
I know. So what can we do to instill the same boldness in children in our life? Both of you are parents. Obviously you would hope that your children would be willing to go in front of a camera and say, yeah, I stand up for these people. They're not being treated the way they should. They should be paid more. They're, giving us this education. What are some ways that you guys have tried to instill that boldness in your children?
Your children are still kind of toddling around, but you do think
start young.
It's not going to happen on accident.
No, it's not. And so for me, it's always been finding this balance, because I have very strong-willed children already.
Where do they get that from?
Yeah, I don't know. Their dad. No, I'm just kidding. So it's this balance of not wanting to kind of squash that, I don't even know what to call it, but that strong-willedness. Because it can come off, abrasive or aggressive or whatever you might want to call it. And so not wanting to squash that, but teaching them just the right times to use it, the right ways to go about, using their voice, but also like not to be afraid to do so. Like, you may have unpopular opinions, and that's okay. They're still your convictions, but also not getting to the point where you're not teachable or not coachable, because once you think you know something for sure, for fact, whatever, then you become just somebody who's not willing to listen to other opinions and other ideas. And so just finding that balance of, yes, being strong in what you believe, but also being open to listening to other ideas and opinions and viewpoints. So parenting, it's not for the faint of heart, y'all.
It's also just like a little sign of the sexism in our culture that like what is strong-willed in your girls, you have to teach them to be, don't be a Brit, you're going to be becoming a Brit. And I'm like, no, if with boys, they would just be like, he's just a strong executive leader. And I'm like, oh, we got to push against that.
No, my girls definitely have strong leadership abilities. I've said that from the beginning.
Not bossy. They have executive leadership
they sure
skills,
do.
right?
Yep.
They're
either going to, lead the world or a prison gang, one or the other. But.
Yale or jail, baby. Yale or jail. I think for us, I have little kids, but it's not something, and we think about this, like what are we handing our kids? Who do we want our kids to be as adults? And we've done this practice with both of our boys at our church. We do this child dedication thing, and we're able to write a letter to our infant to say, this is who we pray that you become, and this is what we want to build into you, which is a really powerful thing to sit down with your spouse and think, what are the characteristics that we want to see in you and to build into you? And so I went back and looked at some of those letters that we wrote for Jack and Thomas, and I think these are the kind of things that we do want to instill. We wrote about curiosity. We want our kids to ask questions and ask big questions and not be afraid of questions. Instead of making quick judgments on other people, ask, why are you this way, instead of just assuming because you're a jerk. And that's an important thing. Yeah. Another thing that's just important for us is we want our kids to stand up to bullies. If you see something, don't move along with the crowd, but stand up to bullies. Use your strength for others. We hope our kids are strong, but never in a way that it's just pointing the light on them, but to, use that strength to lift other people up. One of my favorite things that I heard over the last couple of years was a definition of kindness. And we always think kindness is really equated with being nice. In the Midwest, nice is like the gold standard. Oh, they're so nice, right?
Bless
but kindness, kindness is a bigger idea than that. Kindness is more than nice. Kindness is letting someone borrow your strength instead of reminding them of their weakness. Kindness is true strength, and you understanding that strength. It's the kind of strength you see in Jesus and the kind of strength that you see when people are following him. So we pray for our kids to be strong, but to use their strength to lift other people up. And we were just praying over our kids, writing this, that we hope our kids see the image of God on everyone. Like, understand that you've never made eye contact with someone who God wasn't crazy about, and that is their inherent value. And so how we treat them really shows a lot about ourselves and what we believe about God, and be people that show honor towards people. So if you see people being taken advantage of, we're going to do something about it, because they have the image of God on their lives. So how could we let them just get kicked down? I mean, we've said quite a bit just in this idea of kindness, that we don't want to just raise nice Christian boys, like, oh, they're polite and they're just, oh, so nice. I mean, we don't want them to be rude in that way. But man, we're praying and hopefully building the groundwork to where they become, strong and kind men who love and follow Jesus and serve the world around them. Because, nice Christians didn't change the world in the first century in our New Testaments. I mean, these were people that challenged systems, challenged Caesar, who stood to their conviction, even if it meant that they were going to die through capital punishment, by saying that Jesus is Lord and Caesar's not Lord, and that served the least and the last among them, and broke down all kind of barriers. So, man, I'm hoping that there'll be a generation of kids that stand up for what they believe and use their influence and strength for others. Man, that would be a cool reality. And Prince just shows us maybe a little glimpse of what this could look like. Yeah. The artist formerly known as Prince, whatever we want to call him,
Yeah, one thing that I really loved about this is he was 11 years old. He didn't have any fame. He didn't have any reason to get in front of that camera and say that stuff. But as he grew to fame, it didn't change. He was still the same way. I was looking at something saying that he donated millions to all these different organizations he believed in, and it wasn't because he was famous. It wasn't because he felt like he needed to do it to keep a good image. He's always been that way, as it is shown from this clip. Like, he cares for others. And that was definitely what I loved about this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's flip to the other side here.
We're not just going to listen to Prince music? Okay.
No, unfortunately. We'd get copyright strikes if we did that. So we're going to flip to questions about ourselves. What is your biggest pet peeve?
What really grinds your gears?
Man.
Right? Yeah.
The list could be long for me, unfortunately. That's part of who I am as well. Working on it. But I would say I have two, probably. People who can't or won't make decisions, like even just small things, like where are we going to eat? Just decide. People who can't make decisions.
You are triggering so many people.
I'm
right
so
now.
sorry. I'm so sorry. Just do it. It's okay. They'll be fine with your decision, whatever you choose, I promise. But then people with no self-awareness. That's my other. So like in the grocery store, if you're the person with the cart in the middle of the aisle, like why? Like get over. There's 2 lanes here. So we can, just people in the store that just kind of are like waddling or just like wandering. And I'm like, let's go. We have a purpose.
I speed run.
I'm in and I'm out. I have a list. Let's get in. Let's get out. We have things to do. So but I know there are people that actually enjoy shopping. So they just kind of meander and they take their time. That's not me. And it's fine if it's you. Just have some self-awareness so I can get around you and move.
Now I'm terrified to be in the grocery store with either of you.
I am running. No, I'm just kidding.
Terrified.
I'm not actually running. It's just pay attention.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, maybe some of my biggest pet peeves might be other people's biggest pet peeves about me. I was thinking about this. I love music. I'm a fan of music, and it's a huge part of my life. And one of my biggest pet peeves is like passively listening to music. Like when it's kind of on in the background, I don't get it. I want to be fully immersed in music. I want the bass to be pounding in my chest. I want to like hear every word. I'll never understand it. And other people are probably like, this is why I can't even have music on around Joel. And I get it. It's who I am, and I apologize. Not really. Also, turning off a song before it's done. If you've ever been with those people that are like, it's the outro, and they're just going to change it to the next song. No, the artist intended you to hear the outro and the long fade out. We're going to listen to the whole song. I don't care if it's just drums. I love it. I need it, and it's just who I am. But those are some of my biggest pet peeves, which in turn might drive people crazy.
The other thing about Joel and his music listening is he's going to want to know who sings every song. So if the music is on just in the background, just randomly playing, he will ask you every time, who sings this? Or within the first 10 seconds, he's going to want to say, oh, this is whoever it is.
Recorded in 1997 by Capitol Records.
Yes. Oh, this was their best album. It came out in and I'm like, I have no idea about any of that stuff. So most of the time, if I'm the one playing the music, I have to have it also pulled up on my computer so I can see who the artist is. So that way when he asks, I'm prepared.
I'm the worst, not with artists, but song titles. When someone asks me like, oh, what's your favorite song from this album? I'm like, I don't remember the title.
It's like I always say drummers in bands and stuff, they never know song titles. They only know the first words that the singer sings. And so every song is the very first line. Of the,
No clue. Yeah. What about you?
Mine, it's such a minor thing, and I hate that I get angry about this.
We both do it. This is the thing that's so scary. We didn't know.
I do not like when I ask someone a yes or no question, like, hey, where do you want to get, or do you want to go to Chipotle or something like that? And they say, sure. I hate that. I want a yes or no.
Do you? Yeah. Do you or don't you? I get it. I'm
because
with you.
I don't mind if you say no. Just tell me no.
Yes.
I am so terrified now. I've said sure. I've set her off. Oh man.
I am with you on this one.
I would say like another thing, like in our marriage, whenever Megan and I say, fine, it's fine. That's like the kiss of death.
It's not ever fine.
Yeah.
No.
Right? It's like, sure, fine. Okay, I'm okay. No, we're not.
Yeah.
Right? That's just how that goes. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what sets me off. Yeah.
Mental note, because Abby and I share an office, because most of you probably do not know that. But that's a good thing to know.
It's fine if you're like, sure, yeah, that sounds good to me. But if you just say the single word, that's when it's annoying.
Like texting back with K. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that annoys me.
Okay.
I usually dismiss it if the person's over like 60 or something like that, because that's just how they text.
That's true. And they probably feel like they need to acknowledge that you said something. So they're like, okay, thumbs up emoji.
We just lost all of our listeners over 60. Man, we are killing our whole audience on this first episode. I love it.
No judgments. We see you. It's okay.
Okay, so let's jump into our final article. This is titled, Should Christians Join Muslims in Breaking Ramadan's Daily Fast? This is a Christianity Today article by Jason Casper. All these articles will be linked in the show notes. So the summary on this one, it says Christians in the Middle East are standing with their Muslim neighbors during Ramadan by hosting an iftar. This is the fast-breaking meal they participate in at the end of the day. Some Christians are upset at this, saying that they don't want others to get the idea that Christianity and Islam are the same, and because they have hatred towards Muslims for the ongoing killings of Christians. Nadi Labib, pastor of the Makadam Evangelical Church, said, I'm sad and angry at some Muslim people, but these Muslims here did not kill us, so how can I avoid them? We cannot treat them like terrorists. It is not fair. And I absolutely love that quote because there's so many people who see a bad thing that a specific part of some people group did and have a negative view of everyone in that people group. So what are your initial reactions to this article?
I think for me, I had to learn a little bit. You know,
I did as well.
My own ignorance about Ramadan and our Muslim friends who practice it. But you know, we're in the middle of Ramadan right now. They are in that season. It's April 2nd through May 2nd, so it's the 9th month of their calendar, where they fast throughout the entire day until the end of the day. Muslims believe that Ramadan teaches them to practice self-discipline, self-control, sacrifice, and empathy for those who are less fortunate, thus encouraging actions of generosity and kindness, which sound a lot like Christian ideals as well, right? But they do this from April 2nd to May 2nd, and so at the end of the day, you can imagine that they are really hungry.
I was going to say something a little grouchy.
Yeah, I imagine for sure. So I had to learn about that, and it sort of led me to ask a lot of other questions. Here in the West in America, and especially where we are in the Midwest, we do not have a large Muslim population, so it's nothing that I've really encountered on the daily, but it was really fascinating reading this article and seeing the kindness and the hospitality shown by these Christians in the Middle East that have opened up their homes and just really practice kindness towards their Muslim neighbors. And I know there's probably some pushback and there's lots of thinking about, okay, can we do that? Because they believe in another God or a false God and all this kind of thing. But the question I was really brought to is if we don't make eye contact with them, if we're not kind to them, if we don't build relationships with them, are we helping to stop them from following their, in air quotes, false religion? Or are we just being mean? Is this really accomplishing anything at all if we just shun them during this time? I mean, some of the examples of what these Christians were doing in Egypt were not eating in front of them in the middle of the day. Like that kind of selflessness to be I'll still eat because I'm not practicing this, but I'm not going to eat in front of you. That'd be
it's a
rude.
respect.
Eating buffalo wings in front of you while you can't eat anything would be pretty mean to me if I was hungry as well. So it was respect, it was kindness. I was just really taken back by these Middle Eastern Christians that would do anything to build a bridge to their neighbors that they live with, even if they believe something radically different than they do. I was taken aback by that and challenged by it personally.
Yeah. No, I loved it because for me, I am curious about a lot of things. So anytime you post an article, I'm reading the article, but then I'm also doing a little deep dive because I just am naturally curious about things. So for me, I want to know more. So I don't think anything bad can ever come from creating dialogue and discussion with, somebody that maybe you don't totally understand to get a better understanding of their culture or religion or just who they are as people. So, it may be a little uncomfy. It may make you a little anxious, but I think at the end of the day, we are all better people once we have more understanding and take the time to actually listen. So I loved the idea of this solidarity that these other Christians are doing with their Muslim friends because that's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned it being like uncomfortable, possibly just because they're different.
Yeah.
And there was a quote from this Egyptian pastor, Christian pastor, who said, taking the time to learn about another community allows us to let go of fear and the prejudice that fear encourages. And I was so taken back by that because, there's some initial, like, what's this going to be like to talk to this person that's different than me, to share a meal or to just have a dialogue with them. But isn't it true that we often fear what we don't understand?
Right.
It's like us separating ourselves from them, it perpetuates this fear and this anxiety that ultimately leads us to narratives and stories that they're my enemy and they're a lot different than I am, when in actuality, there's a lot of similarities in just our basic human nature and the image of God on both of our lives. And so I was just taken aback by, like, man, if we don't do better at just sitting with people and learning and being curious and just on a human level sharing meals with people, the polarization that we are experiencing in America right now, man, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, not even along religious lines, but in political alignments and, East Coast, West Coast, flyover states. We just need to do a better job of listening to people and really kicking fear to the curb because of that, because we fear what we don't understand.
Yeah. One thing I really loved about this was just the fact that they did this despite being criticized by other Christians. And I think it's really hard when people in the same group or religion are the ones criticizing you. It can be really difficult because, sometimes you might ignore criticism from people who aren't Christians because you think, oh, they just don't know what they're talking about. But having other Christians come and criticize you, it can be difficult. It can be challenging to stick to doing this that other people that might not agree with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think of Jesus' biggest critics, whatever, fellow Jews, the Pharisees, and other groups like the Sadducees that were calling him out. And I don't know if my mama told me this when I was young. Some are
We'll find out.
You.
Shout out to you, Donna.
But just the reality of, you're doing something right if you have, criticism,
Yeah.
But that's such a challenge. And, man, people that follow Jesus, we could do so much better and not shooting our own and just being more open-minded in that way.
Yep. Just loving people wherever they're at. Like, that's ultimately, I think how we can follow Jesus the best. Like, just love them wherever they're at. Sit down at a table.
Yeah.
There's always room, so much room, longer tables.
Yeah, there's another part of the article where that same Christian pastor in Egypt was talking about hospitality and how he's learned about hospitality from his Muslim friends. He said, get yourself invited to an iftar, that meal. You will experience hospitality from your neighbors that will be memorable. And, it's this idea of this radical hospitality that he'll experience. And, radical hospitality was a trademark of people in the scriptures in the Old Testament. The way that you treated your guest was a way that you honored God. In the New Testament, Jesus followers were criticized, but also it was their trademark that they were tearing down walls between different groups of people and having meals together and having this common bond in following Jesus. And so I think we have a lot to learn about hospitality. And I have a passion, honestly, to just recapture the vision for hospitality, because in America, I don't know about you, but it's really easy to get into you pull into your house, park in the garage, close the garage door, walk into your house, and you don't even know your neighbors. And how do we actually follow Jesus, who said, love your neighbor as yourself, if we don't even know who our neighbors are?
Yeah.
And, we will come across people that we disagree with, that see the world differently than we do. But we're welcomed and invited to open up our homes and sit at tables. Something that we say at our church all the time is that we want to be people that have longer tables and shorter fences. So shorter fences and walls dividing us, and longer tables to where we can sit with people and learn from them and be curious about them and see the image of God on them and find ways to honor each other. And I think these Christians in the Middle East are doing just that by being with their Muslim friends and getting to know them and seeing them not as people that they're trying to convert or change, but as other human beings that they're invited to love and to walk through the challenges of life with.
Yeah. It's not a competition. We're all in this together.
And we can do this no matter who they are, what they believe. It doesn't just have to be Muslims during Ramadan. It can be anyone that believes differently than you. You should be willing to open up and learn about your neighbors. Well, that's all we have for this episode. If you guys have questions or just want to follow along with what's going on, you can email us at atypicaltalkpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at atypicaltalkpod. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Stitcher. Anywhere you can think of, it's on there. And if it's not on there, make sure to email us and we'll figure out what's going on. Anyway, thanks again for listening. We hope that these conversations today have helped you think wider, love deeper, and partner with God to bring the up there down here in your everyday life. Thanks for tuning in.